Sunday, December 10, Mission to Regions Beyond. We read that Jesus took his disciples from Gennesaret, Matthew 14:34, and departed to the region of Tyre and Sidon in Matthew 15:21. Let's look at those texts. Matthew 14 and verse 34, when they had crossed over, they came to the land of Gennesaret. And then in Matthew 15 verse 21, then Jesus went out from there and departed to the region of Tyre and Sidon. Why did he take them from Galilee to these pagan places? He leads his disciples on this field trip into the borders of these foreign regions so that they can learn on location what they could not learn so easily in Galilee. He wanted to teach his disciples lessons that would help prepare them for their calling to reach all people groups, including urbanites. Read Judges 3, verses 1 to 6, and 1 Kings 5, 1 to 12, and 1 Kings 11, verse 16. How do these texts help us understand a bit of the background of these cities? First of all, Judges 3, 1 to 6. Now these are the nations which the Lord left, that he might test Israel by them, that is, all who had not known any of the wars in Canaan. This was only so that the generations of the children of Israel might be taught to know war, at least those who had not formerly known it. Namely, 5 lords of the Philistines, all the Canaanites, the Sidonians, and the Hivites who dwelt in Mount Lebanon, from Mount Baal Hermon to the entrance of Hamath. And they were left that he might test Israel by them, to know whether they would obey the commandments of the Lord, which he had commanded their fathers by the hand of Moses. Thus the children of Israel dwelt among the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. And they took their daughters to be their wives, and gave their daughters to their sons, and they served their gods. From Judges 3, 1 to 6, we see that these ancient peoples were used by God to test the Israelites' faith. Unfortunately, God's people failed that test too, at least in this instance. And they took their daughters to be their wives, and gave their daughters to their sons, and they served their gods, in verse 6. Thus, right from the start, these people were a stumbling block to Israel. And then in 1 Kings 5, 1 to 12, now Hiram, king of Tyre, sent his servants to Solomon because he heard that they had anointed him king in place of his father. For Hiram had always loved David. Then Solomon said to Hiram, saying, You know how my father David could not build a house for the name of the Lord his God because of the wars which were fought against him on every side until the Lord put his foes under the soles of his feet. But now the Lord my God has given me rest on every side. There is neither adversary nor evil occurrence. And behold, I propose to build a house for the name of the Lord my God, as the Lord spoke to my father David, saying, Your son, whom I will set on your throne in your place, he shall build the house for my name. Now therefore command that they cut down cedars for me from Lebanon, and my servants will be your servants, and I will pay you wages for your servants according to whatever you say. For you know there is none among us who has skill to cut timber like the Sidonians. So it was, when Hiram heard the words of Solomon, that he rejoiced greatly, and said, Blessed be the Lord this day, for he has given David a wise son over this great people. Then Hiram said to Solomon, saying, I have considered the message which you sent me, and I will do all you desire concerning the cedar and cypress logs. My servants shall bring them down from Lebanon to the sea. I will float them in rafts by sea to the place you indicate to me, and will have them broken apart there. Then you can take them away, and you shall fulfill my desire by giving food for my household. Then Hiram gave Solomon cedar and cypress logs according to all his desire. And Solomon gave Hiram 20,000 cors of wheat as food for his household, and 20 cors of pressed oil. Thus Solomon gave to Hiram year by year. So The Lord gave Solomon wisdom, as he had promised him, and there was peace between Hiram and Solomon, and the two of them made a treaty together. In 1 Kings 5, verses 1 to 11, we can see the close relationship between the Sidonians and the Hebrews. Though on one level the economic ties were mutually beneficial, no doubt the Hebrews were still negatively influenced by the paganism and idolatry of their trading partners. And then 1 Kings chapter 11, verses 1 to 6. And that reads, "But King Solomon loved many foreign women, as well as the daughter of Pharaoh, women of the Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Sidonians, and Hittites, from the nations of whom the Lord had said to the children of Israel, 'You shall not intermarry with them, nor they with you. Surely they will turn away your hearts after their gods.' Solomon clung to these in love, and he had 700 wives, princesses, and 300 concubines, and his wives turned away his heart. For it was so, when Solomon was old, that his wives turned his heart after other gods, and his heart was not loyal to the Lord his God, as was the heart of his father David. For Solomon went after Ashtaroth, the goddess of the Sidonians, and after Milcom, the abomination of the Ammonites. Solomon did evil in the sight of the Lord, and did not follow fully the Lord, as did his father David." 1 Kings 11, 1 to 6 reveals just how negative that influence eventually became. King Solomon married Sidonian princesses who led him astray, for Solomon went after Ashtaroth, the goddess of the Sidonians, we read in verse 5. Yet, despite the history of paganism and idolatry and their negative influence on the chosen nation, Jesus still brought his disciples to these places. In this way, he initiated them in cross-cultural urban mission, confronting their bias and bigotry, and modelled for his followers holistic urban mission to all cultures and nationalities. Many challenges face the Adventist urban missionary. Among them include health and environmental concerns. Others would include the high cost of living, racism, bigotry, nationalism, and constraints on religious freedom and expression. Nevertheless, despite these obstacles, we must work for the cities. And so to finish today, what can you do to help those involved in urban ministry? You have been listening to a reading of the Adult Sabbath School lessons by Dr. Percy Harold, and the inside story by his niece Sibylla. Apart from being provided free to those who are visually impaired, these audio lessons are available on the official General Conference Sabbath School and Personal Ministry app, on SoundCloud, Apple iTunes, and also on YouTube. Search for Percy Harold Sabbath to find all of these. And remembering all the time that God is always faithful.